9, 10 years old. Y'all remember how long was it when Jack Stallings was pastor here?
5, 7, 6.
Okay, somewhere in there. Yeah, been a long time ago. I hate for y'all to know I was 10 years old back then. But anyway, I already think so. I found a quote in the Randall House commentary that he actually authored and edited a commentary on the book of John. And so last week, what we looked at in those first 18 at the courtroom trial, those verses, what he calls here the prologue, may be thought of as an opening statement. And you all know what an opening statement is in a trial. And so that is John's opening statement. Now the author begins a formal presentation of his evidence, and he calls as his first witness John the Baptist. And so that's the section we're going to look at tonight, where he begins to examine what John the Baptist had to say in regards to the Messiah. So we'll begin there. Anytime you got a comment or a question, just jump in, holler loud. I'll try to slow down long enough to hear what you have to say. But I would love for you to. All right, come on, don't start. It does this to me every time. I changed them a dozen times before class started. Charles, did you do this?
The internet is very slow. I'm not sure.
Is it? Okay. Yeah, that's probably what's going on then. The internet's going. Y'all just have to hang on just a second. Bear with me.
I'll comment on it. He had working good because I sat there watching him work.
It is amazing that it will do it until you start the class and then it will quit. Y'all may have to follow along with the verses because basically all I have up here are the verses.
Brother Mark, can I do the computer for you?
You probably can if you don't mind doing so. If you want to do that, it'll at least get them up there so the folks at home can. Yeah, if you'll do that, just let me switch out of the control mode here where I can at least
Knock it all down.
get back here again. Okay, we'll try this. Yeah, it's not even gonna let me do my notes. Goodness gracious. Yeah, we'll wing it if we had to.
What do you say, Joe?
Change that slide back and see if it'll pick mine up. Just let you control it. Can you go backwards?
All the way back. Do it again.
All right, now change back to that. Just don't see if mine will pick it up. All right, now switch to the next one. Yeah, I think maybe we're going to be all right now. We'll give this a shot. John chapter 1, verse 19 and 20. He says first, now this is the testimony of John. And you notice when he says John here, that he is referring to John the Baptist. Nowhere else in this gospel does John the author, the one we believe is the author, ever refer to himself by name. He alludes to himself in different ways, but never refers to himself by name. So we know that he is talking about here John the Baptist. And he says, when the Jews sent priests and Levites from Jerusalem to ask him, who are you? He confessed and did not deny, but confessed, I am not the Christ. Now, there are a few things in there. First of all, when it says, when the Jews sent priests and Levites from Jerusalem, who do you think he's referring to here when he says the Jews? The Jewish leaders. Okay, he's talking about their religious hierarchy, those who were in charge of their system of religion in those days. He's referring to those specifically who are unbelieving Jews, who do not believe or who will not believe that Jesus is the Messiah. So he's talking about those who are steeped in their religious ceremony, but are going to miss what is right in front of them as far as the Messiah goes. Okay, then they come to him with a question. And the question is, who are you? What makes them send and ask John the Baptist this question? Why do you think they went to the trouble to send someone from Jerusalem, or a group of people actually from Jerusalem, out into the wilderness on the other side of Jordan where John was preaching and baptizing, to ask him this simple question? Who are you?
Because he was preaching about that. They wanted to know who he was.
Okay. And who do you think they thought that he might be? The Messiah. Okay. So they were thinking, okay, if we go out now and ask him, because he is preaching and baptizing people, if he is the Messiah, he will tell us that he is, because people are beginning to talk about it. So they go with this question. There was, at this time, a very widespread expectation that Messiah was soon to arrive on the scene. And the Jews were eager for the Messiah. Why? Why were they so eager for the Messiah to show up?
They thought he was going to get them out on the wrong road.
Absolutely. They expected Messiah to come and be a military leader, a king. As a matter of fact, you look at the word Messiah and the word Christ, as we dig just a little bit deeper into this, they refer to an anointed one, which gives the imagery of a king sitting on a throne, being anointed. And so they were expecting him to be a king, a military leader, a political leader. How long had it been since the Jewish nation had heard anything from God? All right, been a long time. When the prophet Malachi ended the Old Testament, it was some 400 years of silence that the Jews had no prophecy. They had no one to claim to speak for God. So he had been silent for 400 years, and they were really eager and expecting the Messiah to show up about any time. But John wastes no time here, declaring that he was not the Messiah in no uncertain terms. He confessed and did not deny, but confessed, I am not the Christ. Just in case you missed anything in there, I am not the Christ. But he does that in a way that shows that the true Messiah is close at hand. You can almost hear him saying there, I'm not the Christ, but he's right here. He's close at hand. I'm not him, but he is on the scene. And he uses this term Christ to refer to their question. And that, of course, comes from the Greek word Christos, which means anointed one. And that is the same as the Hebrew word, which is Mashiach, where we get our English word Messiah. So the two are interchangeable. And theologically, there is no difference between the word Messiah and the word Christ here. Go ahead, Sam. Let's move on into verse 21 and look at it. We still haven't, what is that?
There we go.
There we are. Okay, so you move on to verse 21, and they asked him then, what then? Are you Elijah? And he said, I am not. They move on down the line. Okay, if you're not the Messiah, are you Elijah? I'm not. If you are not Elijah, are you the prophet? And notice that that word prophet there is capitalized. But there is something there that we need to dig just a little bit deeper in. This is one of those where you need to wade in to some of the deeper end here. And he answered no to that question also. Now, I want you to run another reference here on your own, and somebody read it for me. Excuse me. Turn to Matthew chapter 17 and start with verse 11. And somebody read verse 11 through 13 of Matthew chapter 17. 11 through 13.
Jesus answered and said to them, indeed, Elijah is coming first, and I will restore all things. But I say to you that Elijah has come already, and they did not know him, to him whatever they wish. Likewise, the Son of Man is also about to suffer at their hands. Then the disciples understood that he spoke of them, John the Baptist.
Okay? What's that verse say? Is that a contradiction between John's answer here in John 1:21 and what Jesus is saying here in Matthew chapter 17? John says when they asked him, are you Elijah? He said no. But Jesus in Matthew 17 refers to John the Baptist in the spirit of Elijah. And the disciples knew who he was talking about. How do we reconcile that? Is it just an error? Was one of them wrong?
John the Baptist not actually realized who he was.
Okay. I think the simplest explanation for that, because somebody run one more reference for us. Malachi chapter 4 and verse 5.
Behold, I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord.
Okay? So Malachi prophesies that Elijah is coming before the Messiah makes his appearance. Now, I think the simplest explanation to this is that John the Baptist knew that these men who were sent from Jerusalem to ask him, are you the Messiah or are you Elijah, were looking for an actual reincarnation of the Old Testament prophet Elijah. John knew he was not Elijah in that sense. And so he understood what they were asking. Now, he was carrying out the ministry of this prophesied Elijah. And although he came in the spirit and the power of Elijah, he was not a New Testament appearance of the Old Testament prophet Elijah. Even though Elijah does make an appearance in the New Testament just a little bit later, does he not? Where at? On the Mount of Transfiguration. The disciples that were with Jesus there saw Moses and Elijah along with Jesus being transfigured. So he does make an appearance later on, but John the Baptist is telling them, I am not the Old Testament prophet Elijah. Now, look at this next question a little bit deeper. And it seems almost a repeat of the question, are you Elijah? But it's different. When they asked him next, are you the prophet? Anybody got a cross reference as to what that refers back to? All right, Deuteronomy. It's Deuteronomy chapter 18, and it begins in verse 15. I think I might have that one on the screen. Let's try it. Okay? It says, the Lord your God will raise up for you a prophet like me from your midst, from your brethren. Him you shall hear. According to all you desired of the Lord your God in Horeb in the day of the assembly, saying, let me not hear again the voice of the Lord my God, nor let me see this great fire anymore, lest I die. And the Lord said to me, what they have spoken is good. I will raise up for them a prophet like you. And now this is the Lord having a conversation with Moses. He says, I will raise up for them a prophet, capital P, prophet, like you from among their brethren, and I will put my words in his mouth, and he shall speak to them all that I command him. And in this last verse, and it shall be that whoever will not hear my words which he speaks in my name, I will require it of him. So what they did not know here is that while they were looking for a new prophet, a New Testament prophet, in the same pattern of Elijah and Elisha, Jeremiah, and all the other Old Testament prophets, this Old Testament passage here was referring to the Messiah. That's the reason why prophet is capitalized there. It was referring to the Messiah who is actually already on the scene at this time. So, go ahead. Somebody.
Sacrifice, Messiah, or King of Kings?
The sacrificial Messiah that is coming here, the one that is actually in their presence now. And so John sees that they are in error. John sees that they are looking for something that is not coming. They're looking for someone other than the Messiah that is already on the scene in their presence. So rather than trying to explain their error here, John just simply and emphatically says that, no, I am not that prophet either. I'm not the Messiah. I'm not Elijah. I'm not the prophet that was prophesied of here in Deuteronomy chapter 18. So now they were out of ideas as to who John the Baptist might be. They came with preconceived notions of what they were going to find. They were hoping to find the Messiah. If they didn't find Messiah, they were at least hoping to find Elijah, who would signify to them that the Messiah was coming not too far down the line. And then, since they didn't find Elijah either, unnamed prophet, and John the Baptist says, I'm not him either. So they just quit speculating. And in verse 22, then they just said to him, well, who are you? We're out of ideas. We're through guessing here. You tell us who you are, that we may give an answer to those who sent us. What do you say about yourself? These men were beginning to fear that they were going to go back to Jerusalem to the Jewish leaders and say, we don't know any more than we did when we left. So they just get down to the point of saying, you tell us who you are. Explain yourself to us. Now my app just shut down completely, Charles. Did yours quit?
We're good, I think.
Good gracious. I'm going to have to go back to handwritten notes on paper.
Pull up on your side.
Yeah, see if it will. Trying to get mine going again here. Okay, and here is his answer. John's response to them was, I am the voice of one crying in the wilderness, make straight the way of the Lord, as the prophet Isaiah said. Back up. Yeah, okay. Preacher didn't put you up for this.
Sorry, I'm doing the best I can. There's 23 right there, right?
Yeah, 23. All right, let's see if we can hang in right there. This is, of course, a direct quote from Isaiah chapter 40 and verse 3. And what do you think about his description of himself? Somebody tell me what you get out of that. When they ask John, who are you? He doesn't say, I am John, the son of Zachariah and Elizabeth, does he? What does he say? And why do you think he put it that way?
The same thing Jesus did when the devil tempted him in the wilderness. He used scripture to go back, which they're from the Pharisees, so they should understand 100% who he's talking about, what he's
Okay.
talking about.
What is he identifying himself by here? What does this tell you when he says, I am the voice?
So he's taking any attention off himself to make sure all the attention goes on one side.
There
you
go. Okay. And he does this repeatedly. He is trying to say here, who I am is not important. My purpose is what is important. So he identifies himself here by his purpose, not his person, if you will. And so I think that's something that we can sort of take home with us, if you will, out of this. What he's telling them by this way of answering is that John the Baptist, the person, is not important. Who he is, who his mother and father is, who his family is no big deal. Why are you asking me that? What he has to say is what is important. Who is coming after him and his role to play in that is the central focus here. Now, let's try to go verse 24.
Before you move on.
Go ahead.
That's fine. You know, when he says there in the King James Version, he says crying. If you go and translate that word, it says shouting. Because a lot of times when we read that, it says the voice of one crying, and if we don't read that in the right context, then
We think of the word crying in the wrong way, yeah.
But he's actually shouting
Right.
through the wilderness, letting everybody know that the Lord's coming.
Sometimes I guess nowadays, the world we live in, we can sort of identify that. Doesn't it seem like sometimes we're shouting in the wilderness? When we're trying to stand up for what's right anymore. All right, let's try verse 24 now. Now, those who were sent were from the Pharisees. What? What difference does that make? And why is that thrown in here in the middle of this passage relating this discussion between this group of people and John the Baptist? What's the big deal? Why were some of these men, if not most of them in this group, Pharisees? What do you know about the Pharisees?
Legalistic.
They were legalistic. They were supposed to be considered the experts in the interpretation of the Old Testament and in the interpretation of the law. Anything about the prophecies surrounding the Messiah, these men would have known backwards and forwards. And so, in this group of people sent to question John the Baptist about whether he was the Messiah or not, they sent what they considered to be the most educated Old Testament scholars that they could find. They were trying to make sure that they got the answers they were looking for. Go ahead and look at their question on the next slide here. So these men who were Pharisees, Old Testament scholars, they asked him then, saying, why then do you baptize if you are not the Christ, nor Elijah, nor the prophet? These were the only three individuals that they associated with the arrival of the Messiah. Was the Messiah himself, Elijah the prophet, and then this unnamed prophet that was spoken of back in the book of Deuteronomy here. So they asked him, why then do you baptize if you are not the Christ? Now, baptism here to the Jews, it was something that was practiced. They practiced ceremonial washing a good bit. It was one of their outward practices of religiosity, if you will. But they used baptism itself to baptize Gentile or non-Jewish converts into Judaism. That was the only time the Jews actually practiced it. But what was John doing? John was baptizing both Jews and Gentiles out here. So these men were confounded as to why John the Baptist was baptizing Jews. Now, they believed that the only time that both Jews and Gentiles would be baptized was when Messiah actually came. And then both would, or the Jews would be baptized to signify the Messiah's arrival. So since John had not claimed to be the Messiah or Elijah or any of these other expected heralds, they were wondering why he was actually practicing baptism of the Jews. Now try verse 26. So John answers them and says, I baptize with water, but there stands one among you whom you do not know. What do you think he's saying to them with this response? Give me some ideas that come to your mind. What again is he doing here that we talked about just a few minutes ago? They're asking him, why are you baptizing? And he briefly responds to that, but then he deflects it off to someone else. Again, he is diverting the attention from himself to the Messiah. And in doing so here, you notice he is drawing a contrast. The two words here, I and you, he says, I am baptizing you with water because I know the Messiah is here. I know the Messiah, he even refers to him as there stands one among you. Now, some people actually believe, and there's no reason not to, that Jesus may have been standing there listening to this conversation. Wouldn't that have been something? For him to be standing there, listening to John try to explain his ministry. And so he is saying, I am baptizing people with water toward repentance because Messiah is here and the kingdom of God is on earth. But in contrast to what John knows, what does he say about them? You don't know anything. You are supposed to be the most educated, the most learned teachers that Judaism has. And yet the Messiah himself is standing here probably rubbing elbows with you, and you are oblivious to the fact that he's here. Because a lot of the world still lives that way.
You know, Mark, as we've heard some of the old preachers in the past say, you know, even Christians such as ourselves today, you've heard that saying, we're so heavenly minded that we're spiritually no good.
Mm-hmm.
You know, sometimes we get so legalistic ourselves that we can't see Jesus through the Spirit. Because
It's a good point.
we get too legalistic in what I go back to every time I think about it, we got to have that childlike faith. That don't mean we're not supposed to grow, children grow, but sometimes we get so caught up in the crossing the T's and the dotting the I's that we miss everything else.
Why do you think, and I'm glad you brought it up that way, why do you think these men, in spite of all the wisdom and the learning that they had and the education they had, why did they miss Jesus?
Because they were too busy trying to make sure they wanted everybody to know that they were smarter than they were.
Okay.
That ain't really what I'm gonna say. I
Right.
don't know how to say it, but they wanted to make sure that they didn't lose their status, if you will.
You think they had preconceived notions of who Messiah was supposed to be? And you think they were so rigid in those preconceived notions that they just had on blinders?
A lot of pride in their notions.
Yeah. They had so much pride that they were unwilling to admit, hey, this might be him. We just might have missed something here, and this could be him. And so the long-awaited Messiah that they had prayed for and begged God for years and years is standing there, and they missed him. All right, let's try to get the next one here.
They were so busy in their knowledge, they never put into practice any faith that he was standing right there among them.
That's a good point. Same problem we as Christians have today, just like Jackie was saying a while ago. Verse 27, John refers to the Messiah here by saying it is he who, coming after me, is preferred before me, whose sandal strap I am not worthy to loose. What do you think he's trying? He's making a comparison here between himself as simply a forerunner, a foreteller about Messiah, and the Messiah himself. What do you think he's trying to accomplish with this comparison? Same thing we talked about a couple of times before. Don't be worried about who I am. Don't worry about what I look like. You know, John probably looked like a character. You've read how the Bible describes him. I mean, he lived in the wilderness, and he had clothing made of camel hair, and he ate locusts. He was, probably looked like a wild man to some of these people. John says, don't be worrying so much about who John is. You worry about the one who is coming after me, because he is so much above me that there is no comparison. He's taking that attention off of himself, and he's directing it to the significance and the importance and the status of the one he was preaching about. Now, what is this deal with the big deal with the loosening the shoe here, loosening the strap of the sandal?
And this New Living Translation is how it reads in verse 26.
All right.
He says, though his ministry follows mine, I'm not even worthy to be his slave and untie the straps of his sandals.
Okay. In Jewish tradition, a disciple who followed closely a teacher, and this would apply to the Pharisees because they grew up sitting at the feet of other Pharisees. You remember Paul talked about that. And they were disciples of other great teachers of their day. And a disciple in the Jewish tradition of Jesus' day was expected to perform every task that a slave would be asked to perform for his master, except taking off his shoes. So John plays on this idea here that they have and this tradition that they have, and saying, you don't consider your great teachers to be good enough that you are subject to performing the lowest of the slave duties of actually taking off someone's dirty shoes. But yet, the one that I am telling you about is so much greater than I am, so far above me, that I'm not even worthy to loosen the strap that holds his shoe on, much less take it off. And he's painting a picture for them that they would understand much more than we would. And I think what John's emphasis here, and I'm going to try to draw this to a close here. I think what John's emphasis here on the rank and the importance of this person who is to come after him, as he put it here in this verse, is a couple of things. It's a veiled condemnation, if you will, of particularly these men who were Pharisees, of their failure to recognize that the person that they had read about so much in the Old Testament. How many prophecies are there in the Old Testament about the Messiah? And they had read and studied and longed and prayed for the Messiah. And John is condemning them because they did not recognize that he was actually among them. And also in this response here, I think is a warning of the consequences of their blindness to such an important event. John says if you really understood how important this person I'm telling you about is, then you would be ashamed. You would be embarrassed. You would be horrified that you did not recognize. I hate to use this illustration. What? If when we came in this room tonight and began to gather in here, and you were sitting back there, and there's somebody sitting up here in the middle on this front row, and you're looking at the back of his head, and he sits there through this whole service, and you didn't recognize him, and then at the end, the Secret Service comes in and says, "Okay, Mr. President, it's time to go." Would you not be embarrassed that the President of the United States sat right here in front of you for 45 minutes and you didn't recognize him? Well, I said picture your favorite. Some of them we'd be throwing stuff at if he was sitting up here and we did recognize him. But that's sort of what John was saying to these Pharisees who came from Jerusalem. You know, you need to stop and think, are you really looking in the right way? Are you looking for the right signs here to make sure that you're seeing who you're looking for? And let's look at that last verse. The text of this encounter, these questions back and forth, ends with nothing more than what? Just a location, just a geographical location here of where this took place. No resolution to it. What do you think these men went back to Jerusalem and told? I don't think they knew any more when they left. As a matter of fact, I think they might have left with more questions than they had when they came. Now, what can we learn from John's dealing with this group of people? Now, anything we read and study in the Bible, there ought to be something that we can take to heart and that we can leave here and apply to our life. Now, tell me what out of what we've talked about tonight that we as Christian people today need to take to heart.
I think that just 2 Sundays ago, we recognized the settlement. She taught everything she wanted to glorify Jesus Christ. And that's everything that we do is to glorify Him and Him, not us.
That's it. Yep.
We need to pray for understanding, because that's what I think the Pharisees do. They know there's a jot and tittle stuff out there, the word, but that's all they know was the word. They didn't know the meaning.
Yep.
That's what we got to do. We got to study and pray that God give us the the understanding and being interpreted for two meanings.
It's good thoughts. Anybody else?
We're here for a greater period of need. Somebody heard us.
Yep, somebody, who we are is nothing.
Don't matter.
It doesn't matter.
I think what we referred to a while ago about the Pharisees being there, in Matthew chapter 3, starting in verse 7, I think it is, it says the Pharisees and Sadducees both were there.
Mhm.
And I think that group was there even to the point when Jesus came for the baptism. They were there when the Spirit descended upon Jesus, and God actually said, "This is my beloved Son, hear ye him." Now, I think that's where their real downfall started at, and I never had connected those things together until just a few minutes ago.
There's been a statement that's been made in a lot of different ways, but I think it applies well here. You know, if the people we meet and the people we witness to forget us, has no consequence. Doesn't matter. But if the people that we meet and the people we witness to or the people that we attempt to witness to, if they forget the one we are witnessing about, then it has eternal consequences. And I think that's probably what we need to take home with us tonight. Anybody got any last questions or comments on this part of John?
Well, going back right quick, you know, John, everything he done, he tried to get the attention off of himself. You know, we see it ourselves today, we've even seen it within our own church. You know, you get a lot of people, a lot of times, that's here more for worshiping the pastor than they are who the pastor's preaching.
Mm-hmm.
And that, again, that's one of the things you can take, in my opinion, you can take away from this. It ain't about the man that's behind the pulpit, it's about the man that's behind the pulpit preaching.
Preaching about it. That's it. Yep. Good thoughts. All right. Prayer request tonight. Preacher, you had one earlier.
Yeah, Miss Helen's sister.
You keep remembering Dexter. Okay.
I have a praise item, mom's doing much better.
Good. City living agreement.
Anybody can move, they know how aggravating it can be, and I think probably everybody in this room has done it at least one time. Since Amanda and Ben have been married, they've moved from here to Hawaii, to upstate New York, and she had to follow through with the COVID thing. She was stuck with her parents up there for what, spoken about a week or something, staying up there. They were from the 1st of March all the way to May the 16th, I think, well, before they had to come home last year. But, they've had trouble with the house they bought up there, have to do some work, everything like that there, and they had a house they were looking about purchasing in Louisiana before they go down there, and I called and talked to her for a while last night. She's really down in the press because that house, when they got the home inspection on it, there were 46 pages of things that were wrong with that house before they could buy it. And they were pretty well set on that. And she's pretty well down right now. I can understand what it's
Yeah.
like.
Yeah, that'd be pretty stressful there. Moving under the best of circumstances is stressful. Would be for me.
So I put her on the list too.
Okay. All right. Anybody?
Praise, right, leaving, come to church, got a call with Brian, got hurt on the job, where he works, and, found out that it was not real bad at all, so.
Okay.
They had a lot of heavy metal and stuff, and they put that,
Yeah. Yeah, anytime you get an injury in one of those places, it can be bad.
Remember Danny's daddy Bobby, he had a skin cancer cut off his ear last week. He's got to go again this Friday and have more cut off, so he's worried about that.
Okay. All right. Any others? Okay, Sammy, if you would dismiss us in prayer and remember these requests, please.
Our Father, our God, we come to you with grateful hearts. We thank you for the life and abundance. Father, we thank you for the church you allowed us to be part of, Father, that we can worship you the way you have us to. We thank you for our pastor, all the people that makes up this church, Father. Just be with us. Help us continue to do your work here. Keep Satan out of our midst. Help us to be busy doing what we can to see the lost saved. Help us, the teachers, they teach your word. Help us to take it and understand it and use the way you have us to. We were the ones that's been mentioned on the prayer list, Father, the ones that's sick, that afflicted, injured, the one that has other needs, man, and all of that, Father. We just ask you to meet these needs according to your will. Just ask you to move this weather that's coming through tonight, Father. Just pray that you'll keep it in calm spot, Father, and help us see us through the saints. Just be with us as we leave. Give us safety home and back again the next appointed time. And forgive us of our wrongs. These things we ask in your name.
Sammy,